Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. On my channel, I like to dig into the heart of writing in the characters, and the heart of the characters is in their psychology. So that's our angle we take in everything we tackle. So today, this is the first video in a series I've been thinking about for a little bit. And I thought, why not? Let's do this. Let's talk character arcs. And specifically, let's look at specific character arcs. So basically, in this video, I'm going to be taking a character arc from a popular character in a book, a movie, a TV show, comics, whatever. And I'm going to dig into what it is about that character arc that I think works really well. And I'll also be digging into what doesn't work as well. Because let's face it, no character arc is perfect. So, first off, I figured let's start with one of my favorites. So I'm going to talk about Gohan from Dragon Ball Z. So first off, kind of like with everything, character arcs and our interpretation of character arcs are all opinion interpretation based. This is mine. If you guys have a different one, awesome. I want to hear about it, actually. Tell me below. But this is just based on mine. So, Gohan's character arc is probably my favorite in almost any anime. It may be because it was one of the first ones I saw, but for whatever reason, it's remained one of my favorites. So basically, we have Gohan, who is the son of Goku and Chi-Chi. And we are first introduced to him at the very beginning of Dragon Ball Z. And he is 4 years old when we first meet him. And when we first meet this kid, he is a pampered, spoiled, sheltered child. And I say sheltered because this kid lives out with his family, middle of nowhere, is homeschooled as far as we can tell. Doesn't have any regular friends except for the animals that live around the mountain. And for the most part, his parents kind of fulfill everything for him, which for a 4-year-old makes sense, but they kind of draw emphasis to the fact it's almost an overindulgence, an overprotectiveness, which, to be fair, if you've seen the original Dragon Ball and all the battles and enemies that Goku fought, totally makes sense, but I digress. So, as we follow Gohan along, we're first introduced to him. He's lost in the woods, and he's calling for his parents, trying to find them. Gets distracted by a butterfly, then gets distracted by a bird, falls into the river, and goes over a waterfall, and somehow saves himself with some power he has in him that he doesn't understand. Interesting introduction. And then he goes along with his father to meet Goku's friends at the old turtle house. And along the way, Raditz, his father's brother, shows up, explains that Goku's an alien, kidnaps Gohan. Goku naturally goes after his son, and in the process of saving him, gets killed. Piccolo, who killed him, takes Gohan to go train him, to prepare for the enemies that are coming. Not Gohan's best day. The thing I find interesting is this kid's 4. Originally, they were going to make him 3, I believe, but then the author decided that was probably a bad idea, so they made him 4, which, to be frank, isn't much better, but regardless, there you go. So now Gohan is in the hands of his father's archenemy, who is telling him that he's going to be training him how to fight for these enemies that are coming, the other Saiyans that are coming. Gohan is naturally freaked out because the first thing Piccolo tells him is that his father has died. When you're 4, you really don't understand what that means, to be frank. So Gohan understandably freaks out and starts calling for his father to come save him. And Piccolo essentially tells him, if you don't stop crying and screaming, I'm going to kill you. So now Gohan's left with Piccolo, and Piccolo makes the decision that he's going to abandon the kid in the wilderness and tells him, if you're still alive in 6 months, I'll train you. And he does. He flies off and leaves the kid there. I think Gohan's experience in the wilderness is probably the best character building I've seen, because you really see how this kid, I mean, he's so used to having a bed and being taken care of, and now he's thrust in a situation where he has to take care of himself, and he really doesn't know how to, so he's having to kind of learn as he goes and hope he doesn't die in the process. One of the things he learns is that nature is not fair. He makes a friend with a dinosaur. It's Dragon Ball, don't ask. He makes a friend with a dinosaur, tries to help the dinosaur who's injured, but at the end of the day, nature still wins out and it dies. And that's a hard lesson for a kid to take. And then there's another point where he meets an old robot who initially doesn't want anything to do with him, but Gohan keeps turning him on because he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know he doesn't know where he can find food. He doesn't know how to cook the food, anything like that. And this robot begrudgingly is helping him with this. But eventually, the robot chooses to save him instead of keeping him there when there's a cave-in, and essentially tells the kid, you're going to have to learn to take care of yourself. And that is almost a boost to Gohan, like, okay, my friend died saving me, so I'm going to have to do what he said and learn to take care of myself. And we gradually see him getting the hang of it. We see him learn how to make fire. We see him seeking out food to eat, hunting food to eat, and all those kinds of things. And at one point, he even decides he's going to make an escape raft, escape this island that he's on, go back home and find his mother. And through a course of many adventures, he does so, and then decides to go back, because he comes to this realization that he can run home to his mother and be sheltered and taken care of, but the danger's still coming. And so he makes the decision, no, I'm going to go and make sure I'm ready for this. Then you have, like I said, this is a long arc, so I'm going to try to sum it up as best I can without sitting here all day talking about it. So the Saiyans come, Gohan shows up with Piccolo and some of his father's other friends. They fight, numerous people die. Gohan freezes several times in the battle because he's 5 at this point. I mean, he's in a battle with these monsters. He's 5 years old. He's only really been trained by Piccolo for like 6 months, and now he's forced in this situation that most adults wouldn't know how to deal with. So understandably, he freezes. And during the process, Piccolo ends up sacrificing himself to save Gohan, stating that those 6 months he spent with him in the wilderness weren't that bad. Gohan loses it. And that's really our first hint that he's got more power than we expected him to have, and that it's triggered by strong emotion. We'd seen hints of it before, but this is really where it kind of starts to burst out. So this battle goes on. Goku shows up after he's been resurrected. There's more of a battle that goes on. Gohan decides to go back to help his father. At the end of it all, they end up going to Namek to find the Dragon Balls to revive Piccolo and everybody else that was killed. Gohan is now faced with Frieza, who is going around killing these innocent Namekians, and they get involved in that battle. Let's see here. Gohan witnesses his friend, his new Namekian friend Dende, die. He gets killed. Then he witnesses Krillin get killed, his father's best friend. Witnesses his father turn into a Super Saiyan for the first time. And is ordered away from the battlefield by his father in a tone that he has never heard before. Goku's words to him are, and I quote,
"Take Piccolo with you and get out of here now! Find Bulma, find the spaceship, and go! Do as I tell you right now, before I lose what little sense of reason I have left!"
Not something a 5-year-old usually hears from their father. So, understandably, a little freaked out. Gohan and everybody end up surviving. Goku is lost in space for a little bit. If you're going by the anime, there's in the Garlic Jr. saga where Gohan faces off with a villain who has brainwashed his entire family, all his friends, except for a handful of folks. And so he not only has to fight this villain, but he has to fight his brainwashed mother, his brainwashed friends. Then you go into Future Trunks, the android saga, which is basically where you find out in 3 years, some androids are going to come, they're going to kill everybody, Goku's going to die of a heart virus. So they all prep for this battle. So just adding in a point here that I realized I had left out when I originally recorded this, and I can't believe I left it out because I think it's very important to the overall arc and theme. During this 3-year gap, Gohan is training with his father, and he's training with Piccolo. And in the process, he essentially is creating his own martial arts style that is a blend of his father and Piccolo. And the reason I bring this up is because I think this was done very deliberately. Because what they've been doing from the beginning is they're showing, the very beginning, when we're introduced to Gohan, we are shown how very different he is from his father. But as the series goes on, we start seeing how he's very similar to him in certain ways. Like they'll show him acting and doing things the same way his father does. And when he is being trained by both of them, he is incorporating skills from both sides. And at the end of Dragon Ball, the original, Goku and Piccolo were the strongest people on the planet. They faced off with each other, Goku won. But those were the strongest people on the planet. So now Gohan is gaining skills from both of them. So he is essentially creating this mix of literally the two strongest fighters that the world knew. And I don't think that's by accident. And Gohan gets a lot stronger during this time, but I think his real growth is when he goes into the time chamber with his father, and that's where he learns to obtain Super Saiyan. I think this is the important thing about a character arc. There's a theme in a character arc. I think a lot of times we get caught up with, okay, here's what they look like before, here's what they look like after, here's the change they've gone through. And while that's important, I think it's not as important as the overall theme of the arc. For Gohan, it has been, I'm going from a victim to a protector. And that is really what his arc really centers on, is he starts off as this helpless, spoiled child that doesn't know how to take care of himself, let alone how to take care of anybody else. And then as he goes along and he learns, he's put through these horrific situations that would, traumatize anybody. But along the way, he starts to realize that he has the power to protect himself from these situations, and that he has the power to learn to protect other people from these situations. And I think the biggest shift for him comes in the time chamber, where he is attempting to obtain Super Saiyan with his father. His father has already obtained it, and so the goal is to get Gohan to reach that same level so that they can gain strength together. And in order to gain Super Saiyan, you have to tap into a deep rage. Gohan's deep rage is at himself for not being strong enough. And I really think that's telling.
I think Piccolo was right about you, Dad. You're way too gentle with me to train me right. You've got to push! Fight me, Dad! You're holding back! Gohan! I said fight! Listen, you can't go easy on me just because I'm your son! No, Dad, that's not good enough! Not if you want me to become a Super Saiyan! You have to come at me with everything you've got, even if it kills me. Don't you get it? It's the only way! It's all or nothing. There is no in between! Look, Dad, I know you love me and that you don't want to hurt me, but unless I become a Super Saiyan, all the time we've spent in here will be for nothing. Don't you see? That's the way you do it. One way or another, we're going to find out if I really am a Super Saiyan. It's now or never, Dad! Don't hold back!
I hope you're ready, son.
Letting people down my whole life! How many times have I let my friends down when they needed me?
Attack, Gohan! Attack!
And how many of my friends have gotten hurt because I've been too weak or too scared to help them? If only I'd been stronger!
The power comes in response to a need, not a desire.
If only I could have done more! Whenever I get into trouble, anytime I'm in over my head, I don't think I'm going to make it, Dad, Krillin, Piccolo, one of my friends is always there to bail me out.
The power comes in response to a need. You have to create that need.
But when the situations are reversed, I just stand there like a little helpless child. Krillin, no!
Help me!
Krillin, I'm so sorry.
Son, use the pain of loss.
Dad, you've always been able to do anything you set your mind to. There's never been a challenge you couldn't meet. And when the time came, you were ready. You became a Super Saiyan.
Response to a need, not a desire.
But Dad, I'm not like you. I just don't think I have what it takes.
Use the pain. The power comes in response to a need, not a desire. You have to
No!
create that
I have to be strong. If I can't do this, then Dad, Krillin, everyone, I'm going to lose them all!
And I think this scene is important for several different reasons, but the main one is that up until this point, Gohan has been very reactive. When he's faced with a situation, he reacts and he grows stronger to protect himself. But this realization in his mind that he has his lack of essentially power, strength, courage has been letting down people he cares about his entire life drives him to essentially reject his father's protection. He's telling his father, I know that you don't want to hurt me. I know that you want to protect me. I'm telling you to stop doing it. And he makes that active decision that in my mind takes him from someone who can defend themselves to someone that is going to defend other people. And that is a significant character change for him. And like I said before, this follows him, even into the Boo arc, which I'll go into later, a little bit later. He still has this sense of wanting to protect other people, of wanting to defend people that cannot defend themselves, and it starts here. And this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire anime. Just him making the choice, okay, regardless of the outcome, essentially the buck stops here. I'm not going to be a victim, be defenseless any longer. I'm not going to let anybody else down. And for the most part, I'll go into the failures of this arc later, but with what they were setting up, it's solid. I mean, and then we have them emerging from the time chamber. Gohan has obtained the Super Saiyan. He and his father take time off to rest. Then they have the big battle with everybody else against the main villain. So Goku goes first and eventually gives up because he's not strong enough to beat Cell. And so he calls his son because, as he says, you're stronger than me. Gohan doesn't believe it. And it takes a long time through the battle for him to really get the gumption to let that strength he has inside of him go. And I think that is an interesting angle because he does have almost this idolization of his father. So that comes not only from knowing what his father can do and what he has done, but just his age. Gohan at this point is 10 years old. When up until we're about 12 or 13, if you're raised in a healthy environment, it isn't too uncommon for kids to think, okay, my parents can't do any wrong. So being told that not only is he as strong as his father, but he's stronger than his father, is kind of hard for him to fathom. But there is a catalyst, the death of Android 16, who prompts Gohan to be the protector he has become. And Gohan lets loose his power, surpasses his father's power, and we get Super Saiyan 2. And we also get Gohan's arrogance, which I love. Because, think about it, if he has been building and growing stronger and stronger and stronger throughout this arc, and now he has finally surpassed his father, and he creates and embraces this new power that no one has ever seen before. And he's 10. I think it would be fairly easy to get caught up in the bloodlust, and that's what happens. And ultimately, Goku has to step in and save his son, and dies in the process, dies a second time. And Gohan gets essentially his second wind, fights against Cell. But there is this great conversation between him and Goku. Goku contacting him through King Kai from the other world and essentially encouraging him to keep fighting. And I love this scene to death.
What's the matter, Gohan? You already have all the power you need. Just bring it out!
I can't keep this up! I just can't hack it, Dad! It's too much for me to handle! I'm just a kid! I haven't changed! Not at all!
Will you stop attacking yourself? I don't know where you got it in your head that there's something wrong with you, cause there's not. You've saved my life and our friend's life so many times, and you're going to do it again, right now!
The reason I love this scene is this is essentially a sum up of Gohan's arc that we have had thus far, in that he's acknowledging his fear of insecurity, he's acknowledging how he has been weak in the past in his mind, how he has failed in the past in his mind. And his father is essentially setting him straight and saying, I don't know where you got this idea, but it's not true. You're capable of great things, and now you're going to do them. And that's really, honestly, where Gohan's arc in the Cell games ends and why I love it. Because he surpasses his father, defeats Cell, and even though his father remains dead, Gohan has stepped up into his shoes and has accepted, okay, now I'm the protector. I've surpassed my father. It's my job to defend the Earth now. And that's still one of my favorite endings to an arc. But they didn't end it there. They didn't end it there. I bring it up because as much as I love this arc, and as much as I think they really built on it, it's not perfect. I really think if they had ended his arc at the Cell games, it would have been a pitch perfect arc. Because he went from victim to independent to defending other people, and then surpassed his father. That was the big point. He pushed past his father's own power and own skill so that he was stronger than his father. The protection of the Earth is under his son. And because of this arc, growing from victim to defender to protector, this makes perfect sense. And it works brilliantly. They kept going. Then we have a 7-year break. You have the Buu saga, and Gohan has grown complacent. He hasn't trained as much in the 7 years because there was peace. He didn't see a reason to. And now this new enemy comes in. He's realizing he's not strong enough, so now he has to build his strength up again and regain the power that he has lost, and then some, which he does. And then he charges back on the battlefield and makes the same mistake he made in the Cell saga, in that he gets arrogant. And I'm not even going to talk about Dragon Ball Super. I'm not going to go into that. I think it's been talked to death by other people. I don't think there's much point in talking about it some more. So why do I bring this up? I think not only is making a character arc, you have to decide where to start, what the theme is, what happens in between, how long. You need to know when to stop. That has been the big issue that most fans have had with Gohan after the Cell games, is that he is retreading his old arc, and we've seen it already. He supposedly had to have learned this lesson already. And so when you just repeat it, not once but multiple times if we're counting Super, it loses its power. Now your character just looks like an idiot and looks like someone who has lost that finesse and that build that we loved the first time. And I think that's something that companies try to recapture, essentially the lightning in a bottle effect that we got with the first arc. And honestly, I don't think that's possible, because the reason the first arc worked was because it was set up, it was followed, there was a solid theme, and it had a good conclusion. That's why it worked. You can't just repeat the last half of that and have the same effect. Now, Does this mean I don't think a character can have multiple arcs? Absolutely not. You absolutely can have multiple arcs with a character, and I think it's fun when you do that. But that's not what happened with Gohan. They have just been trying to repeat his first arc. And like I said, that doesn't work. In order to make that work, you have to have a new theme. The theme at the beginning, like I said, was that Gohan went from a victim to a protector. That was the theme. So if you're going to do a new arc with him, it needs a new theme. And honestly, I think they could have done that. I think they could have focused on, okay, the theme now is going to be that his earthling side overwhelms his pride. That's going to be the new theme. That would have worked. But they didn't do that. So, I mean, I could babble on about this for a long time, but since I'm already coming up on 20 minutes, I don't think I want to do that. Actually, it's probably past 20 minutes now that I think about it. But anyway, so why did I use this arc as an example if I think it didn't work very well? Because the first arc they had worked awesome. And if they had just stuck with that arc, it would have been great. But because they keep rehashing it, it's kind of losing some of its finesse. It's losing some of its passion and the thing that made it stick out. So that's what I think to take away from this arc is not only that building the arc is important, but knowing when to stop it is just as important, if not more important. So that is just my dig into Gohan's arc. Like I said, this is still one of my favorite arcs. Like I said, I don't like what they did in the later half, but the first half is solid. And honestly, a lot of fans, not just me, but if you actually look on things like fan fiction and fan art, there's a definite break after these arcs ended, where you see a lot of AUs, where people just say, okay, we're going to stop it here and we're just going to write our own. And I think there's a reason behind that, because like I said, the arc itself is solid. It's just they didn't stop it where they needed to. And I think a lot of times, especially when we want to keep going with a series or with a story, that can be very tempting. Like, oh, okay, I want to keep using this character, but they've already had this huge arc. What can I do? Do not repeat their first arc. That is the main lesson here. Do not repeat their first arc. Give them a different one. Give them a different realization or epiphany they have to undergo, and build on that. But don't just rehash the first one, because it doesn't work, and it feels lazy. The best way I can think to describe it is that it cheapens the first one. It cheapens the first arc, because you're just trying to recapture that energy and you just can't do it. So that is my first character arc delving into. I hope you guys found it interesting, and as always, any comments or suggestions, make sure you leave them below. And I will catch you guys in the next one.